All right, everybody, let's break down the co-main event for tomorrow's fight night in Baku, Azerbaijan. Shara Magomedov versus Michel Pereira. All right, let's look at the tail of the tape. So we got 16-1 Shara Bullet versus Michel Pereira with 46 professional fights with a 32-14 record. Height is about the same, 1 inch difference. Age is exactly the same. Reach is exactly the same. Stance is the same. And there really is no takedowns when it comes to Char Bullet's game plan, but some of it has entered Michel Pereira just by him being the capoeira master in the UFC today. Now let's look more into the careers of the man who used to be in the rankings for the middleweight division, Michel Pereira. So he trains at Scorpion Fight Team, which I believe is in Michigan. Yeah, it's in Brighton, Michigan, where he trains out there. And this is his record. He has a 15 UFC fight record with 10 wins and 5 losses. And he has now 15 UFC fights, getting into his 16th this Saturday. And yeah, here's his UFC career. 5 losses, and we're going to go through them. The ones that he had in his last 5 fights. But first, let's show you how he got into the UFC before he came in. Like he had so many fights before he actually came and made his debut. He had 2 pages of Wikipedia regional fights before he finally came in. So before he was a Road FC alum, there he is doing his backflips, his Superman punches, his crosses that caught his opponent out cold, flying Superman to a grounded opponent and then hitting another one with a jumping sidekick to the temple. And so in his fight at Road FC 52, he took on Dae Sung Kim, beat him with TKO in the second round with knees, and got to win the trophy in the I believe it was a title. I don't know if they had a belt, but yeah, he won the trophy after that fight. And that got him to get his UFC debut in 20, I believe it was 18, against Danny Roberts, which I believe this is in Danny Roberts' backyard in his home country. And Michel Pereira made quick work, only 1 minute and 47 seconds into the first round. He hit Danny Roberts with this jumping knee to the chin, just followed up with this on the money right jab, and just he fell down like a towering lawn chair. But now, like I told you, we're going to look at Michel Pereira's last 5 fights since he has 15 of them in the UFC. So this man took on Mahmoud Muradov earlier in 2023, or he was supposed to, but Muradov withdrew due to an infection. This was supposed to be in 2024, sorry. And Michel Pereira needed a new opponent, so who filled in? Ihor Pretoria, which everyone in Brazil already hated this man because he retired the Brazilian legend Shogun Rua. And they love Michel Pereira defeating Ihor Pretoria and doing a nice backflip capoeira style to a grounded opponent. But watch this. His knee literally collides with the temple of his opponent and he's down and grounded, but no penalty was called. And then he gets up in the scramble, gets him in a front choke guillotine, and sent him all the way backwards to an unconscious, layering up at the lights. And then he took on Anthony Fluffy Hernandez, who we all know is the number 7 media ranked. I don't know where he is meta ranked, but still was unranked at the time of this fight. But they had to reschedule it because originally it was supposed to be on the Sphere, a huge spot for Fluffy and Pereira to be on, but the bout got rescheduled because they needed a main event for the upcoming fight night that took place a month after 306. So that's when Hernandez and Pereira finally fought. Hernandez made easy work out of him, ground and pounding, elbow, cut him so open in a pool of his blood as he's lying, and Herb Dean stops the fight. So after that, Michel Pereira still has a ranking after losing to a man who just cracked the top 10 now in Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. So he would take on Abus Magomedov. And in a close decision, Abus Magomedov would win this fight, and it would, unfortunately for Pereira, sorry, he would be now on a 2 fight losing streak. So now we go into his fight he was supposed to have last year in Shanghai, China against Marco Tulio. But Tulio pulls out with an injury, so he's unable to compete. So who takes this fight on 2 weeks notice, flying halfway across the country, fighting for the CFFC, who got cut by the UFC prior, Kyle Dawkins. And this man made the upset of the century when he just sent the striking master, Michel Pereira, down to the canvas and knocked him out. So after that, now losing three fights to Kyle Dawkins, Abus Magomedov, and Anthony Fluffy Hernandez. He's got his first fight this year in Fight Night in Houston, Texas, with Zachary Reese on hilariously on the undercard of Fluffy Hernandez's or his second main event. Yeah. So finally, thankfully, Michel Pereira gets a win to break this losing streak. So now he is 2-3 in his last five fights before he's taking on Sharabullet Magomedov in UFC Baku, Azerbaijan. So now let's look at Sharabullet. Now this is the man who has a lot of controversy behind him. Let's go through it. So firstly, he trains out of Moscow's strongest gym, GRO MMA, with some of the nastiest guys in the UFC today. You see Bogdan Guskov, top 10 light heavyweight. There's freaking Sergey Pavlovich and Walter Walker, two top 15, in Pavlovich's case, top three ranked heavyweights in the world. And yeah, there's the man. There's the guy who is the head coach. That is, I believe that's, I forget who the name, but he is a close friend. I was the head coach with Habib Nurmagomedov. I believe that's Jefferson. Uh, Freak. It's Jefferson something. Nascimento? Yeah, Jefferson Nascimento. So yeah, there is his record. He is 5-1 in the UFC division since coming in from the regionals, which that's his record in kickboxing and mixed martial arts combined back and forth. And how he got into the UFC was first fighting for Bakla 11. Yes, he fought for Bakla Fighting Promotion. He would beat Kushla Valles by first round in 8-second TKO with the knee that ended the fight in 8 freaking seconds. So the one-eyed knockout phenom is now going to debut for UFC. That's the problem right there. He is technically one-eyed. That's him in 2015, and this is him 9 years later. This man is an undefeated Russian prospect that only can fight out of the United States because we can't give him a license because he only has one eye. So he would make his UFC debut at UFC 294 in Abu Dhabi, where the main event was Volkanovski versus Islam Makhachev 2. And Sharabullet would make his UFC debut against Bruno Silva. And oddly enough, Bruno Silva would be a tough test, but would lose a unanimous decision to Sharabullet, and then it would make him go 1-0 in the UFC on to his next fight against Antonio Tricoli. And again, another win for the one-eyed pirate, Sharabullet, and he hit him with this left hook punch to the chin and just set him to his ass to the canvas. And now his third fight, Mikhail Aleksheychuk. This is another, like, he is moving up and up in difficulty in opponents as he's moving into continuing his undefeated record. And this was a close decision, and Michel is very upset by the ruling, but 3-0 now, moving on, still undefeated, Sharabullet. And now he would, which now, as we mentioned before, Michel Pereira, I didn't say this before because it wasn't in his last five fights, but he also took on Mikhail Aleksheychuk in the past, and he defeated him by rear naked choke, showing us, like I was saying, he's not just a capoeira striking, just his strengths. He also has a ground game, Brazilian. So now his fourth fight, Sharabullet is taking on Armen Petrosyan. This is the fight that put Bullet on the map. He is victorious, obviously, but the way he won was hitting him with this double spinning back fist helicopter style that made his face crumble within the connection of the knuckle and just sent him to his knees like a dog doesn't know where he is, where's his master. And now the 4-0 man would get his toughest test. The former Bellator superstar coming into the UFC to try and make a splash with the remaining years left in his career. And Michael Venom Page would take on Sharabullet, who just became a ranked middleweight after his fourth UFC win. And unfortunately, this would be his first UFC loss. And he would lose by 3-round unanimous decision to Michael. And this would unfortunately be the loss that would stop his undefeated streak. But fortunately, he had to get back on the horse and take on his last opponent, which was Marc-Andre Barrios. And like I could have called it, it was another decision win. No, he has a couple finishes, but No, this was another decision win, and now it leads us to this Saturday's co-main event, Shara Bullet versus Michel Pereira. So, who am I going with, ladies and gentlemen? I'm going with Shara Bullet. I think his momentum, even though he lost to Michael Venom Page, is still much better than obviously the man that's lost three of his last four. I know I usually do five, but he was on a three-fight losing streak and survived by a split decision. Two judges, just one judge of those two, made sure he did not suffer a four-fight losing streak. And so I think Sharp Bullet, with that momentum that he's gotten back since he lost his first, like his first loss came to Michael Venom Page. I think Sharp Bullet has momentum back on his side after beating Marc-Andre Barrios, which I think is a better opponent than Zachary Reese. That would be a great fight to have in the future. But for now, I think Charbullet takes this fight by. It's going to be a strategic fight. I don't think he's going to finish Pereira, but I think it's going to be a three-round decision. And your winner, the Pirate, Charbullet.